as to what's important, not the developers that are out there. And then we're to advise the developers as to what's important. So to the extent that we have, you know, a window of opportunity of 2 weeks or a month, once the RFPs are brought in tomorrow, we can have that dialogue and determine that these fit, or that none of them fit, or that we need to amend or modify. So I think we can get accomplished 1 and 2 without making any changes. The third, I'm not sure how we do that from anonymity situation. Yeah. Because the proposers, the developers are to do this from the board's perspective, totally anonymous. We're not to have any knowledge as to who they are.
Yeah, that's why we propose for it to be posted on the website.
And
It gives them the opportunity to look at it, and you don't know
truthfully, I think
who's looking at
that's a
it.
good idea. But again, we might, the obligation of the advisory committee is to advise us.
Mhm.
So we would take that advice and we'd have to deliberate as to what is important, because we might say out of the 10 recommendations, 8 fit, but 2 we're not gonna, we wouldn't want to post. So I think we're due that courtesy of that advice before we put that out into the development.
And that would be a ways down the road.
A ways down the road. And I think we have the window of opportunity to do that. I think we have the time frame, and we certainly have the ability as a board to take all those recommendations in and to get the community's thoughts and ideas and input into the process. I don't think we're at the end. I think we're at the beginning.
What would be the difference in having a workshop of ideas, either to you or to the proposals, and having a walkthrough? I mean, the people that are actually putting proposals went to a walkthrough. They went to see the site. I'm sure some of you all were there. Some of you all might not have been there. You know what I'm saying? You met them. They signed their name that they were in interested proposals. They didn't give you what they were doing as the proposal. They were there to look and listen. What would be the difference in doing that and then giving another opportunity for these ideas to be given to them in that same kind of a form? And I guess my other issue, and the reason why I bring it up as the walkthrough, is because I also feel, born and raised Detroiter, very, very strongly, I choose to live in Detroit because I love my city, not because I can't go someplace else. There are going to be people, because they've not had to now have to go through a walkthrough, that are going to be proposing that might not have ever even been here and met anybody. I have some issues with that. Now, not to say that I think everybody that develops a site in the city of Detroit has to be from Detroit. I'm not asking for that. But I'm saying to you that they at least need to know the climate, the people, the atmosphere in which they're developing in. If they don't have to go through a walkthrough, they've never heard from our community, they've never seen anything from our community, they have no idea, they have no clue where they're developing. They're just plopping a development in the middle of a site. That would be my concern with that. Now, if you're going to come from England, across the world, or whatever, and plop something here, I want you to know just a little bit about who we are before you plop it. That would be kind of where my concerns are of not getting information prior to. Now, if there is an opportunity after the fact, I guess my thing is the RFP, I don't think that messes up the word that you can't keep saying, because now that you've said it, I can't. But that's okay. Anonymity. I don't think that would ever stop the anonymity. But if there is a way, and if we as a committee and as the land bank agree to there being some other process of being able to include this information after the fact, that's fine. But I think that process then needs to be developed before we just, as an advisory committee, in my opinion, just say, okay, we're throwing out the idea of an extension. We need to know what that process is so we can actually understand from today, after tomorrow, how this gets incorporated into the process. Like Doris said, How are these things being evaluated? What is that process? Again, there's a concern from me in my community, and I'm sure Greg has the same thing, and I'm sure Craig would have the same issue too. You get information tomorrow, we might get something a week or two as far as proposals that are coming in. We're in July. Most of our neighborhood associations don't meet again until almost October. So, in order for us to call a meeting with our neighborhood associations to actually present ideas and to get a response from them, we're not gonna do that in 2 to 3 weeks. That's gonna be very difficult for us because of the timing of this. Now, had you all told us we were gonna do this in January, December, then we could have scheduled our meetings a little differently. But normally, most of our neighborhood associations are not meeting July, August, September. So we'd have to call a special meeting. And in order to call a special meeting of our community or get some information out to our community and get that kind of feedback, it's gonna take us a little bit more of time. Doris probably would be the easiest because she has the least amount of members, but.
130.
Right, but, you know, for the rest of us, it's a little bit more difficult in getting that kind of response back. So I guess that's kind of where we would like, I mean, I just wanna know where the process would be so that we aren't, again, going back to our community saying, okay, yeah, the RFP was put out. Well, what did we have input? No, we didn't have any input. Okay, well, the RFP was amended. Well, did we have any input? No, we didn't have any input. Well, now the RFPs came back and here's the stuff, but you can't really respond because they're gonna vote on it tomorrow.
So I think that would be a concern for everyone, just making sure that we have enough time.
Right.
When the RFPs come in, and we can take the ideas, present them to our community, and have enough time to come back to you with what our community thinks about the RFPs. I would hate for this to be another situation where we, log on and get an email.
Well, and again, I think in response to, some of what I said earlier, the land bank has had some good discussion in the last number of months about, our desire to make sure that whether it's the fairgrounds or any other property, along with the idea of ensuring that properties are not sitting vacant, but they are productive, they are positive, they're positive for the communities in which they're in. There is a strong desire by the land bank to make sure that they are done in harmony with the local community. So I'm going to ask.
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Sure.
I think what we're talking about is we want to advise the Land Bank Authority as to the timeline. And if we got the timeline today, here's when they're come, here's how long, here's the period of time that we'll be having these discussions, here's when we want to reach this benchmark, et cetera, then we could come to an agreement about what that is. And I think we would have a little bit more comfort about, oh, okay, we're going to have this much time to review the RFPs, et cetera. I think that would help us, but it's right now we're working with some kind of a vague notions, but not a clear calendar about here's what we want to do, and we want to get a buy-in into that calendar.
Sure. So I'm going to bring two things back around as, so we keep the process in place here and make sure that the land bank board is, that we are, have made a decision about the response to proposals time frame. Tomorrow is the deadline. Last week we were holding to that. Is there any desire by this board to discuss an extension?
I think we should wait to see what comes in and revisit that once we see what the landscape looks like. And again, no one's gonna get, this is a first step. We'll see if it's a small step or a big step. But there'll be a lot of opportunity for us to get a lot of input. And I'd still like to hear some input today. We had a comment on sustainability. I'd like to get more input today, like more substantive input versus process.
Okay, so any other discussion on timeline? If not, let the minutes reflect that we've stayed fast to our timeline.
You mean the timeline of the RFP?
The RFP deadline, yes, just the deadline for the first response.
Can you respond to my suggestion about, can we get a calendar that we can all agree to?
That's where I was going to turn the discussion next, because I'm not sure I understand the RFP timeline as it's laid out right now, and perhaps Scott or Kim, you might be able to respond to that and clarify some things.
I believe everything is due at 2 o'clock tomorrow. There is a team completely unrelated to the land bank that is receiving the proposals and is going to create a list of who has the names of the proposals that are coming in, an entire list. And stop me at any point. That will be provided to this board and to the advisory committee. They are going to go through each of the submittals and divide them into two parts, the conceptual part and the financial due diligence part. The conceptual part, any identifying factors will be removed, marked out, names, things like that would, could show an identity. And we think that will take
Well, I think
couple
that
days.
is kind of what's dependent on the timeline. If we get 50 proposals, it's gonna take a lot longer than if we get 2.
Right.
So that depends. I think we'll have a better idea tomorrow.
Well, and we'll know how many are in tomorrow.
Right.
We won't necessarily know who they all are. By Thursday, we should at least know, we would have a final count of what was in and who had proposed. Correct, Jill? It may take them a day or two, so shall we say Monday? They'll be ready, we hope, assuming there's not hundreds of them. And I know you met most recently with that team, so is that doable?
That seems doable as long as there's not 200 that come in.
And what we can do, I mean, we can make the same arrangements, we can make sure to get them to our land bank board and to the advisory committee. If we have to drive them, we'll drive